Hello, hello. How's it going? I am here from the year 2030 to talk about the web framework that we are now using in the future. Thank you very much for the nice intro, and thank you very much for being at my talk today. Um, Hi, I'm Dev, and I'm a dev. That joke never gets old. I am a software engineer at Zolvio, which is a small consulting company spread across the US and Europe. We are heavy into GraphQL, event sourcing, and AI. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, please hit me up, and I'd love to chat about that. I work on some open source libraries sometimes. Primarily, I contribute to Solid.js, specifically the version 2 of Solid that we are working on at the moment as an experimental version with a lot of new features. I also sometimes contribute to Tanstack Start. Sorry, had a quick interruption. I also sometimes talk about and get involved with Tanstack Start, and I make content on YouTube, and I am terminally online on Twitter or X as well. So you're always welcome to send me a question or start a conversation about anything really web dev related. So for going into the talk today, I want you to think about the web framework that maybe you're using currently. If you're using Next.js or Astro or Remix or whatever else, maybe it's not a non-JavaScript framework like Laravel or Rails. I want you to maybe make a mental note or put it in the discussion somewhere about what are the things that you like about the framework that you're using. And maybe what are the things that you wish your framework had that maybe the other frameworks have a feature or a capability that you wish you had in your framework. And what would your ideal framework look like if what you're using right now is not your ideal framework? If What would that look like? What are the different things that you would pick and choose from the landscape of frameworks today to build something that is ideal for you? Keep this in your mind, and because throughout this talk I want to talk about what my ideal framework looks like and how close we have gotten to that. So here's a few properties, and I want to explain what they are that I want in my ideal framework. The first thing is, obviously, I want it to be minimal. I don't want a framework that brings an entire world of opinions and libraries and capabilities into it. I want something that gives me a good starting point and then gives me minimal tools that I can add on top of my existing setup to increase its capabilities or to do more things that I couldn't do before. A second property, I want it to be type safe. TypeScript has basically won over the JavaScript ecosystem, and I would like my tools to embrace that fact. I would like my tools to offer me fully type safe interfaces so that an entire category of bugs don't make it to production, and we can easily catch them at static time or when we are writing the code through our IDE. Powerful. I don't think it's an understatement to say that there's a lot of modern JavaScript or web features that frameworks have started adding, and I want to make sure that I have access to those capabilities. What specific capabilities I'm talking about, I'll get to that when we start talking about that section. But needless to say, a lot of frameworks these days try to retain simplicity by giving up power. I don't want my ideal framework to do that. I want my ideal framework to achieve simplicity and minimalism without giving up on the powerful features that we have come to expect from modern frameworks. Extensible. I feel like a lot of frameworks these days lock us into their way of doing things. I absolutely want to avoid that. I want to make sure that for any specific use cases that I might have, I can bring in the tools that I like to use or that already works for me, and I can extend the base frameworks using those tools instead of being locked into how that framework achieves uh, things like data fetching. And finally, agnostic. This is something that we are especially bad at these days with frameworks. Most frameworks are kind of like locked around React, which most of the time that's fine, but that's never going to be ideal for me. And that might be partly because I contribute to Solid.js, but I would like a framework that I can use, that I can have my options open of what rendering framework I want to use with it, um, even if there's an adapter not ready for that yet. Okay, let's get into each of them and see how we can fulfill them. The primary thing I want to talk about in this talk is Tanstack Start and how it does a great job at achieving all of these properties, and it gets very close to my ideal framework. Okay, let's talk about minimal. Uh, I hope most people are familiar with the screenshot that I have here, or at least what it's referring to. Uh, but I hope most people are familiar with Create React App. It was one of the best and most minimal starting points for any React application, where it just gave you a simple index.html page that loaded a JavaScript file, and then in there you can render a React app or whatever you want. As simple as that. I want my framework to have the same minimal starting point, where all it does is give me a bundler setup and and a place to write some client-side JavaScript code that I can then render something on the screen using an index HTML file. Most modern frameworks tend to overload this with a lot of additional capabilities. And while I'm not saying that those additional capabilities are useless, I'm saying that most of the time I want a more minimal starting point and then opt in to the additional things that I want. So Tanstack Start, you can use a CLI utility called Create Tanstack App, which works very similar to Create React App, and it can give you the exact same starting point. That's the default, just has a wheat setup, client bundling setup, and client rendering. However, Tanstack Start offers a lot more than that. On top of that base starting point, it offers a single utility function called Create Server function. This is basically all the power of Tanstack Start, all rolled into a single API that we can use to do a lot of things. These server functions are basically RPC endpoints that the client can call at any point. And these server functions are capable of a lot of things, like streaming data out of order, or accessing the request headers or cookies and fetching data from the server, talking to a database, talking to external systems. Basically, whatever you want to do on the server, you can do it from server functions. And this is kind of the fundamental thing that Tanstack Start adds on top of a regular application setup. And the other thing that it can do, Tanstack Start, is simply render your entire app into one of these. This is not code that you would have to write, but this is code. This is how Tanstack Start is able to deploy your application, and it can run that application or any part of that application on the server, render that into HTML, and even stream that to the client. So this means rendering your suspense fallbacks on the server and streaming them to the client while the rest of the data loads. All these fancy capabilities are available using just Create Server function, or you just using Tanstack Start to deploy your app into a server and not having to write any of the server rendering code. Okay, so that was about how Tanstack Start tries to be minimal. Let's talk about type safety. Tanstack Start is a layer on top of Tanstack Router, which has not only existed for a very long time in a very stable condition, but it's also probably the first router that we have seen that is fully type safe. It doesn't make use of type generation to add type safety to our routes. It only uses code generation to build your route trees. All the type definitions that we use or that we get at Tanstack Router are completely inferred from our route definitions. So if you create a route like that with a /post and a post ID, you can link to that route by exactly specifying that route pattern and then the parameters. If anything in here doesn't match, TypeScript will immediately tell you that something's broken, which means you can never have broken links that go past the compile step. It's crazy, isn't it? The type safety also extends to server functions, where any server functions that are offered by Tanstack Start can accept a validator method or a validator object, where you can specify exactly what shape the input should be in, and then your clients can call that server functions, and they have to pass the data exactly in that shape. This also makes sure that the return type is validated, and as well as the errors that could be thrown within your server functions. This means you always have a type-safe interface from your client to the server without any additional overhead and without any additional ceremony. You just define a server function with some validators, and all the types are automatically inferred. Uh, the part where the type safety blows my mind the most is search parameters. Search parameters are a great place to store state because they can be bookmarked, they can be shared, they can be navigated through history. There's a lot of things that they allow the user to do because the user has control of the URL, and the browser always records what URLs we go to. So any state that we store inside search parameters is automatically made serializable, bookmarkable, and shareable for the user. So making that type safe was a very good move, and it allows us to actually use search parameters as a very reliable state storage without having to worry about things breaking all the time. This means we can once again just use a schema to validate our search parameters and then access them within our components. We can even navigate between them using links or navigate hooks that tries to retain search parameters as much as we can. Okay, let's talk about powerful. So I've shown how Tanstack Start offers really minimal APIs, and it's fully type safe. But I also want to make sure that our frameworks have all the capabilities that we expect from modern frameworks or modern JavaScript applications. A big one is nested routes, or the ability to treat routes as layouts and wrap them over each other, and even fetch their data in parallel. So in this example, the post index route and the post route are all nested inside the posts route. This means that if you are on the post route, you're going to see its UI along with the posts route UI that wraps it. And we're also making sure that their data is fetched together. Streaming is another big example where from within server functions, you can return some data, but that data can have additional promises, which means in this example, we return this object, but we are fetch user and fetch posts, stream text. We don't wait for them to complete, because as soon as they complete, their data will be streamed over to the client automatically, and the client can work with whatever data it has in the meantime. We can even pass text, streams. So for example, the stream text could be response from an AI, which is not a single response, but a stream of tokens over time. We can very easily handle that within server functions because streaming is built in. We also have the ability to create middleware, which can encapsulate a lot of both server and client-side logic. We can compose these middlewares into our server functions, which means we can essentially create mini backends or fully composable client-server logic that coordinates with each other without any help from the outside. And finally, the server-side capabilities are really powerful as well, because Tanstack Start uses something called Nitro. Nitro is the server framework that was developed by Next.js and is used for Analog, Solid Start, Tanstack Start, and of course Next. And it comes with a lot of capabilities built in, as you can see on the screen. Finally, I want to make sure that a framework is extensible. So here we are seeing the Tanstack router cache, which is a very simple cache that holds some data for each route, and it can be invalidated, which works really good for simple use cases. But Tanstack Start makes sure that you can bring in something like Tanstack Query for more fine-grained control. And you can even use something like the newly released Tanstack DB when you want more transactions and optimistic updates in the UI. Finally, really small point, Tanstack Start and Tanstack Router are framework agnostic. They already support both React and Solid. They can run on any infrastructure or JavaScript runtime. So this just makes sure that you are basically never vendor locked. That's the end of my talk. I hope that I have convinced some of you to start building for the future with me. And if you're interested in that, please hop on to Tanstack Start and Router docs, check them out, and let us know how it goes. And of course, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or anywhere. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm honestly already convinced because I love Solid and the work you do with Tanstack. So that's already, you already won me, let's say.
That's good to hear.
And thanks also for giving some credit to Nitro and doing such an amazing work. We have a few questions from the audience.
Cool.
Could you maybe give a quick comparison between Tanstack Start, Next.js, and Remix?
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, I Remix in that comparison, I'm not sure how it's going to go because they're going through a pretty big renaissance right now. So
Yeah.
we probably need to see how
Maybe
they're.
the remix from before. Yeah.
Yes, I can talk about React Router. Yeah. Next.js currently is a pretty good choice for anything that relies a lot on like fast load times, things like e-commerce use cases where there's more static data and static content rather than like highly dynamic app-like flows. Um, Primarily because of how much Next.js relies on React server components. Remix and Tanstack Start, or at least let me say React Router and Tanstack Start are in a very similar category. Um, I don't think React Router has all the same kind of features that I talked about for Tanstack Start. It's not as extensible. I've had a very difficult time trying to figure out how to put something like React Query on top of a React Router app and make them work well together. Tanstack Start just has a much better story around integrating with other like data fetching solutions. So other than that, I think React Router has a very minimal API as well. So if you're okay with like not having all the type safe APIs and you're okay with just using their loader patterns, then it's a great solution. But if you want that sort of extensibility where it can work for any use case that you have, then Tanstack Start is the best choice.
Yeah, I agree. It's very agnostic and it's very well written API. So yeah, maybe a few words about other frameworks.
Sure, yeah. I think the feature that sets Tanstack Start apart quite a bit is the biggest one is probably just framework agnostic.
Yeah.
Every other framework is like really designed to be built on top of like a specific rendering platform, like Solid or React primarily. Astro is the only one that tries to like stay completely agnostic to this. But yeah, that's my favorite feature about Tanstack Start is that you can take its benefits in terms of type safety, composability, and client server like full stack relationship, and you can take that to any framework you want. So React, Solid, Svelte, Angular, Vue, really any of them.
It's
I
also
think
a
this.
very long lasting skill. Once you learn it, you can
Mhm.
reuse it anywhere. So yeah.
Exactly, yeah. That's I think the biggest thing that sets it apart.
Is there maybe something that we should know regarding the ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Tanstack ecosystem itself, everything around like query, tables, forms, charts, store for state management, and I know there's a lot of new work coming out as well. Uh, it's hard to answer that question because Tanstack Start doesn't really lock you into its APIs, which means literally anything that works well with React and Vite and like just regular JavaScript, that's
I
going to
mean,
work
here
completely
it's
fine.
mostly like a free runner for you to just glaze the framework and say how good it is. So just saying that there's a table and a lot of other things baked in is, yeah, just already good. So that people are
Mhm.
aware can visit it. So yeah, perfect. Um, I think that's pretty much all for the questions. Again, I warmly recommend you to check Solid and Tanstack. That's very good tools. And thanks again for your um, very nice talk and positivity. And I wish you an amazing day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.